Yo, I'm Matt,
And I'm Joel,
and
and
we're
we're
FringeCraft.
FringeCraft.
Today we're going to be watching a video. Zach Vorhies tells his story about defecting from Google. This video was originally from Edge of Wonder, and we'll link their website down in the description. They're no longer on YouTube that we can find, but they have their own video service, and it was reposted on Channel Zero. We'll link the reposter um, in the description as well.
Okay, well, Zach Vorhies was previously an employee at Google, and he ended up defecting from Google or leaking from Google, and he brought with him a trove of documents revealing kind of some secret stuff Google's doing as far as controlling searches. And this video is just a bit about his story of why he defected and the tale of how it came to be.
All right, well, let's get into it. And before we start, I just want to say, like this video if you like this kind of content. Uh, Subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you here more often. And comment what you think about this. Like, do you think it's okay that tech companies have the power to just say what you can see and what you can't see? Like, what you can look up and what you can't look up? That's a pretty powerful thing. So let us know what you think. Other than that, let's get into the video.
Finally, I was just like, yeah, this is wrong. I got to leave. And then a week later, the first disclosure came out. About 2 weeks later, the lawfare started happening with this legal firm. And so I'm like, well, obviously they want to shut me up. Obviously they don't want any more of this to be disclosed. And while I haven't disclosed it, I've got a big, wet, juicy bullseye on the back for a assassination hit job. So I said, you know what? It's time for the American public to know how bad Google really is. So I took all the documents, I printed them out, 950 pages, and I mailed it off to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division in Washington, D.C. I then called up Keith and I said, hey, James O'Keefe, I need to, I want to let you know that if I die, then every single document that I've ever given you can be disclosed to the public. And then I went to Twitter and I stated that I had activated a dead man switch, and that if anything happened to me, that that all information would become immediately public, right?
Seems kind of dramatic.
Google responded
Yeah,
by red flagging me with a wellness check, and
SWAT team showed up.
SWAT team actually showed up. And not only just the SWAT team, it was also people on the rooftops with sniper rifles. Not that many, but a few. The SWAT team called in a bomb threat to my house because they saw a tin can sitting next to the gate of my house, and they said, this looks like it could be an incendiary device. And they're like, oh, this wire over here, that could be like a detonation device, even though
Meanwhile, it was like, yeah, it was last night's Campbell's soup or something like that.
it was actually denatured alcohol. My roommate is a fire dancer, performs on stage, so she just kind of carelessly left this like denatured alcohol, and so they.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's not that careless. I mean, you guys are just like that actually is quite normal for her job. It just so happens that when the SWAT team's after you, they're gonna see that and something's gonna go down.
Right. So I didn't answer the door, by the way, so they didn't even know that I was home. They called in like this bomb threat. They shut down from 20th Valencia all the way up to like 22nd Valencia.
They shut down
The theater by my house was evacuated. The stores were evacuated. Everyone
city block.
was evacuated.
This is ridiculous.
And it was a really bad sort of situation. They're all trying to get me to come out. I'm like, no, I don't want to come out.
That is a bit silly.
Yeah.
I mean, they corroborated it with news articles. I wouldn't even. This sounds like such an embellishment, but they had the news articles to corroborate it that they actually evacuated the whole block.
Yeah, if he had just said it, it might have been like, man, maybe this guy's like really trying to puff up the story. But no, it's. I mean, this seems like, one thing that it seems to me is like, there's always like a response. Like the police and authorities never seem to be able to get the right level of response. Like if there's a murderer, it's like there's way less response than is needed. But if there's some silly stuff like this, or someone making like says something on social media, it's like they'll put way too many resources into like making a point about that, whatever the situation is. And they say, well, oh, we wanted to err on the side of caution, but it's like, wait, there are literal murderers that get less of a response than this.
It's easier to flex on this guy than a
yeah.
than a murderer.
And another thing is like, it appears to me like I think what he's so far, when he started off, like he got these documents and he's sending them off, and to the antitrust, Department of Justice antitrust division. All right, that's reasonable enough. Though I think maybe just like doing that and putting it on the internet would have been more reasonable. But like, by saying like there's a dead man switch, like, maybe he was going through an instance like he really felt like something was going to happen to him, and he wanted to make sure like, there was he's like, I don't want to say dramatic, but like make an artistic point to like, say like, I'm not going to do anything to hurt myself, but if someone does hurt me, like this all comes out, like all this dirt that I have on you guys comes out. And it seems clear to me like there was a response from whoever was watching, because you don't, do that and then this happens, and it's like, it's not that nobody was watching him, like somebody was looking at what was happening with him and said like, we need to take some action here to do some a wellness check, right? And it just seems like it was blown way out of proportion. And who knows what was going on with him personally. It's really difficult when you go through situations like this, like where you feel like the system is out to get you directly. And so
I mean, he was definitely the target of it.
Yeah. And so we can't say one way or the other whether he handled it. Who knows what anybody might do in that situation. But he did seem to be a little dramatic about it, but that maybe it didn't warrant this kind of response. When I say maybe, it didn't appear to warrant this kind of response at all. And so you see that he might have ruffled some feathers. But let's continue the video.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just like I'll answer any one of your questions over voice chat or FaceTime, but no, they wanted me out of the house so that they could, ask me these questions face to face. It's totally escalating the situation. And so I pretty much refused, but then things started to get like heavy, and I was like, well, what are the possible situations? They could make up an excuse saying that they thought that I had intentions to hurt myself or bury evidence, which is called exigent circumstances. And so they could just make up an excuse, come into the house, and then maybe they shoot me, and then it was like, oh, our cameras weren't working. So I said, I am going to resolve this situation by coming out. There's a bunch of people on the streets now. Valencia is a very, very busy street. This is entertainment crack to the bystander. Everyone wants a cool video, so I'm going to come out with my hands up and everyone can see it. And if they shoot me, then there's going to be a bunch of witnesses. So I came out with my hands up, and they detained me. They asked me if I wanted to kill myself or hurt others. Obviously, the answer was no. And then they're like, why does Google want to do this? And I went, aha! I knew it was Google that had done this wellness check. So at that point, I got confirmation that it was Google. And then I decided at that point, because they were actually really cool once I showed them a letter that I had given to Google explaining that I had delivered their information to the DOJ. After that, they're like, oh, you're a whistleblower. I was like, yep. And then they're like, okay, they de-escalated. They called out the bomb threat. And then the next day, I was on a flight to Washington, D.C., and I was in a safe house because, I haven't disclosed yet, which means that they know that they can still get me. And so I was, in a hotel room under a different name. I came out to Project Veritas in their video that was released, I think it was August 17th, 2019, this last summer. And that blew up. And like, I remember when they announced that they were going to release 950 pages. And then when they did that, people from around the world started like hitting that download link, and it was just like massive. It was like, it was like they showed me their inbox. It was like ding, 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 like they got an email every single time someone hit the download button.
So like, he might have gone about this in a way that seems a little extreme, and maybe again, like, if Google is the ones controlling, searches, it's like what else can they control with very little,
Effort.
yeah. Like, well, we control your email and your, all sorts of stuff. Like, if you post a YouTube video about it, what's gonna happen?
They could find where you're staying.
They just take it down, is what I'm getting at. Is like, they don't have to, like, there's all sorts of things that they could do to try to censor your disclosure. So he's trying to disclose it to whomever. He chose to disclose it to Project Veritas. Whatever you believe about Project Veritas, I suppose go look at this information, because whether you believe that they're good or bad or, useful or pointless and, waste, I think that if someone used them who's like, he seems kind of like a hippie to me, who lived in San Francisco, and he was living with a fire dancer.
Yeah.
And like, he talks about mystical and kind of esoteric stuff, and he's definitely like an interesting guy. I'll just phrase it like that.
He's a bit on edge.
Yeah, and he does seem on edge, but he doesn't seem like some kind of uptight conservative, like, I don't know. And not to say that all conservatives are uptight, but he's not like this who you'd expect to maybe dump through Project Veritas. So go check the documents out. Maybe we'll link them. Or maybe we'll try to find a link that's not through Project Veritas for other people, just so, because there's, again, I think sometimes when you go through certain sources, there's like inherent like biases connected to the information that you're giving.
I think inside the documents also he has the actual blacklist of like the original controlled search blacklist,
which is crazy. I mean, it's like if these documents are straight from Google and they're saying they're blacklisting certain searches.
Well, they don't call it blind, they call it controlled search.
Well, if they say they're controlling certain searches, and it's like, realistically what's going on is there's a blacklist of things that you can't actually find out all the information on, that's a huge deal. I mean, it just...
Yeah, I agree.
It's not just like nothing. That's, in my opinion, that's overreach. And so...
well, especially the fact that they're not forthcoming about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what really, like, you can say what you want about their platform. If they don't want to have information on it, they don't have to have it. But if they're going to be deceiving about it, that's when I think it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And, you can, whatever about him, if these documents are valid, like if they're real, then it doesn't matter if he's the weirdest person on the planet. The documents are valid and what he's saying is true. So, not to say that he is the weirdest person on the planet, but any personal things, like I do think some of the stuff seems a little dramatic, but that's not problematic if the documents are true. It is if he's maybe putting something out that's fake, that he's trying to get attention. But, let's let the documents kind of sort that out. And so we'll, I suppose we'll look into that more, and we'll post what we can find in the description, and maybe we'll do a thing where we look over the documents and like point out some interesting stuff.
Type in some searches.
It's 950 pages. Sounds like a lot to read over, though.
Nice.
But I'm sure someone's already done it.
Light weekend reading.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Anyway, let's finish this video.
It was just like more than one a second. It was like 10 or 20 a second. We're like hitting down this download link, and so all of the censorship design documents, all of it that I was able to grab went out to the public, and now we were able to see like exactly how that they censor. And some of the documents that I've disclosed have been blowing people's minds. And I want to talk to you about some of those things, because it goes down the conspiracy rabbit hole and the true nature of how our society functions.
Ah,
All right. Well,
they had to end right there.
yeah, they do. I mean, he could
On the
just probably
clip we
talk
have.
forever about this. All he's seemingly about to do is about to hype stuff up.
Yeah.
And we watched some other like literally there's another video that we'll put out before this that he seems to talk about some stuff though he doesn't actually talk about the documents. I like this video though cuz he talks about the documents. And like that's part of the main point of the video is he's like Google basically broke off, like called a mental health welfare check on me because I told them I was going to release these documents. I mean, that seems to be the gist of it. And then maybe more so, he made a dramatic point about the documents, but still seems a little overkill to call in a wellness check that gets turned into like a SWAT standoff.
Yeah, I mean, I think from Google's perspective, they did not want him to release those documents. But on the other hand, like, I think they probably don't think they're doing anything wrong because just by the way he described their internal culture about, like, they had a meeting where they started talking about all
Politics.
Yeah, that's a very weird
It's
thing to do in
unprofessional.
an office.
Like it's not professional if you're in an office in a professional environment, right? To start talking about political things that what is this saying? Like you don't talk about politics, love, and something else in
I don't know
polite
the saying,
company.
but
Like you know, um, it just seems like, and it also seems to me like there's this idea that it's all right to censor things if there even if there's some truth in it because you get rid of things like undesirable speech or whatever. And it's like the problem is it's in my opinion very similar to an innocent person going to jail amongst a group of guilty people. It's better, in my opinion, that the innocent person doesn't go to jail and those guilty people go free than vice versa, where the innocent person is in jail, but you get to lock up these guilty people. It's like this innocent person does not deserve that. And it's like the truth doesn't deserve to be locked up. It deserves to be free and available for people. And I don't think that that's appropriate to censor it
oh, I agree.
under the guise of cleaning up
Fairness
radical
or
speech
fake
or whatever.
news or hate speech, whatever. However many ways they
Yeah.
have to try to.
And like I don't like there's
Veil it.
speech I think is really wrong and terrible and I don't like it and I don't want to hear it, but that didn't mean that you censor it completely and whatever. There's literally always going to be people on this planet like
There's people who put dislikes on FringeCraft videos.
yeah, don't be one of those. But like there's always going to be people who are it seems to me like terrible people and who have terrible things to say and just you can't censor it completely and like make it go away. You can avoid them and you can avoid what they have to say and you can look for truth in reality. And I think that's a healthier way to go about things. So that's really all I have to say about this video. I am glad he brought up the documents and that kind of wraps up our segment on him. And we'll, again, link the documents.
Yeah. Well, there's also the Alex Jones interview. I'll skim through it and see what's worth.
Okay, we might have
showing
another thing to see if he talks about it more in better detail that explains the situation more. But basically the idea of, a company like Google controlling what you search. Remember, they own YouTube also, so, you aren't going to see everything you want to see on a subject because they decided that it's, not kosher, so to speak. So,
Yeah, they just don't want you seeing it
yeah. And
for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what.
only the authoritative sources that they approve will be allowed to speak on it. But I think that's who decides what's authoritative and what's not. So, all right. Well, I've been Matt,
And I'm Joel,
and we're FringeCraft. Later,
See you
guys.
guys.